Kyle, while this is most likely the Nic Batum game, you phrased it perfectly when you tweeted out your recap on Twitter. Of course, you can all read it at allphly.com. Please go check it out after we're done here tonight. But that being said, when was it louder? One of the Nic Batum threes or when the chicken was won?
So I do think the loudest moment of the game was probably the Kelly Oubre N1 in the final stretch of the game. But I proposed it in the tweet, as you said. I don't know if that's the Chick-fil-A game or the Brickin' for Chicken game or if it's the Nic Batum game. It was a wild ride. I'll tell you that. I didn't know what was going to happen because the only reason they're in that game in the first place, now give them some credit for playing defense and forcing Miami into some tough stuff. But if Miami had a real offense, they probably lose that game by 30 points. And so they're a little bit fortunate to hang around in that game for a while there. But given the fact that they got basically one good quarter out of Joel Embiid, given that Tyrese Maxey looked like he was seeing ghosts against the zone for the entire first half, that's an improbable win, and it's got to have the team, you guys, the fan base, everybody feeling pretty good because that's not the sort of game this franchise tends to win or has tended to win, at least in this era.
So I guess, how did you think Joel looked physically? Because there's been a lot of this debate and discussion about that in the chat.
It's tough to say. I did not think his lift was good, right? But I will say I saw some great defensive possessions in space for him in the second half where he had smaller players on an island, which that can be a bit tricky for him at times. And he ended up holding up well. Now, that being said, he also got caught on his heels by Kevin Love, whose only job on offense is to shoot threes, and he's backpedaling on that one for God knows what reason. I think the important thing that I saw, and obviously it helped that they won the game because of this, but there have been a lot of games like this in playoffs past or big games they've had in the past where Joel just never finds it, right? You can tell on his face, through his body language, fatigue, whatever it might be, that this is not going to be his night. And he just never rallies, and it's up to other people to figure it out. Well, he got a lifeline from his teammates, Buddy Hield, Nic Batum, Kelly Oubre's defense, some other guys in the second half. And then when it was winning time, when it was time for somebody to step up and win that game, it was all Joel. Hits a couple of threes, has the big offensive rebound where if he didn't have lift the rest of the game, went up and got that one in traffic, puts it back up and scores, had some big defensive rebounds on the other end. And the final assist to Kelly, the big pass through traffic for the N1, that's the sort of read and pass that, frankly, he just wouldn't make in the past. But also for him to have the mental sharpness at that point shows me something about whether he was or was not fatigued, that he's still seeing the game at a high level at that point to get it into Kelly. And so I don't think he looks 100%. I think that's probably stating the obvious. But the fact that he was able to battle and rally and find what he needed to for the group, that to me is the best sign that we got from the entire game.
And
that offensive rebound was something we pointed out during the watch along.
Yep.
It was very reminiscent of like this first couple games back when he was, moving slow and looked like he was fatigued. And the last couple minutes, he dialed something up defensively to really save the game. It was huge.
Yeah. And he was real smart. And Kyle, that played to the Oubre, we talked about this during the watch along also. The thing that impressed me the most outside of the pass was the fact that he didn't throw it across his body first, and he then pivoted and allowed himself to drill the pass where he had his shoulders square and could make a much better pass to allow Kelly Oubre to finish right there, seal the man, and finish at the rim.
Yeah, look, so many times, if you go back through these big playoff losses they've had in the past, the issue has been composure. And that hasn't just been Joel, right? There have been plenty of other guys who have unraveled in different ways, whether it's Ben, whether it was James, role players, Tobias, certainly one of them. I don't know how much you guys have talked about him tonight and getting benched down the stretch, which I thought was pretty interesting. We could talk about that a little bit potentially. But Joel is always the guy that you got to hold to a higher standard, and he has had some subpar moments when they've really needed him in the past. So to have the presence of mind to make the correct plays in crunch time. That's a step forward from what we've seen from him in those moments before. So good job by him. We'll see what he's got against a much tougher team in the New York Knicks.
We mentioned it yesterday, Kyle, during our show after we came back from practice, but we talked about Nic Batum, and Batum was talking about different things about Miami, but he also said, and we talked about this earlier also, but I wanted to ask you, because we were there when he said, it's a game 7, and he was very low key. That's who he is anyway. He talks very softly and all of that. But for him to have the poor first half that he had, come back in the second half to uplift where Embiid and Maxey are struggling, Oubre as well, Harris not scoring either, for him to then be the star of this game, he had to be the one that, the most unexpected one to really uplift this team in the way that he did. We've seen him help them win basketball games all season long, but in this manner, going 6 for 10, 17 in the second half to lead all scorers in scoring in the entire second half, and play 9+ minutes in that fourth quarter. That was something where we look at it, and this was the Kelly Oubre game. This is what happens in postseason.
You mean the Nic Batum game?
I'm sorry, the Nic Batum game. Sorry,
You guys have been talking for
we've been talking for a while.
4+ hours. So
Plus, we had
I'm gonna give you guys.
brain fog from
I just had a
from
brain
allergies.
fog.
Yeah,
I just had brain fog.
I'm gonna give you guys plenty of grace for that. Trust me. So Nico said at the podium tonight, he actually kind of made jokes at his own expense. He's like, you guys better not be expecting me to score 20+ points ever again, because that's just not my game. Most games I'm getting 2 and 3 shots, right? Like that's me. That's who I am. And I do what's required. He actually made a big point of, he pulled up the paper box score. So I'm going to wave it in front of you guys. It's the Jimmy Butler MCL injury. Yeah. So Nico pulls up the box score and he's like aggressively tapping it, saying, I don't care about this. I care about doing whatever it takes to help my team win. And through a couple different guys tonight, we heard that Embiid and Nurse in the locker room are given some instructions at halftime, like role players got to shoot it. They're obviously crashing on Joel, crowding the middle of the floor, leaving guys open, and they were too hesitant. And then Batum and Buddy Hield actually had some side conversations like, look, this is what we're out here for. This is our job. The looks are there. We have to let them fly. Nico pointed to himself and said, I was trying to do too much. I'm forcing passes in that I shouldn't have. You just got to take what the game gives you. And he alluded to the fact that, like, look, he doesn't have the legs that he used to, although I joked on press row tonight they might drug test him after the no-look tip-in and the one-step dunk from the perimeter that he had that didn't end up counting because a foul happened previously. But he's just the sort of role player every championship hopeful has to have, right? A guy who can just masquerade in a bunch of different roles. Tonight he hits a ton of threes. Tonight he's defending Jimmy Butler. There'll be another night where he's just basically a decoy in the corner, or his connective passing is the number one thing. But he was outstanding tonight. It's going to get a ton of praise, and rightfully so.
Did they mention like any adjustments to the zone in the second half, or was it just people stop being hesitant? I was going to use a much harsher word there, but
was it a word that starts with a P and ends with a ussies? Or
no, it started with an S and ended with a tupid.
Okay,
I don't use hard P's on this show.
Okay, as NBA players are wont to do, they mostly just said we were more aggressive, and that was the key to everything. So there was a little bit of that. I think they never want to admit to any actual schematic issues. They said we didn't execute what we wanted to do or what we should do. So they kind of left it at that for the most part.
Okay, fair enough.
So with that, you talked about Batum and Hield speaking, on the side, talking amongst one another about the role players doing what they needed to do. And before you came on, maybe you heard it, we were discussing just that, where Buddy Hield had that stretch in the third quarter when they made that run, where he had some big shots, had a drive to the basket and finished that lob to Paul Reed as well, where while he also didn't play his best basketball in the first half, coming out in the second half, playing much better. And Kyle, in order for them to do what they need to do against New York, we'll talk a lot about that over the next couple of days or tomorrow for sure, that they're going to need that to continue from Buddy Hield.
Yeah, look, I know our friend Provolone doesn't want to call this a playoff game, but I do think you saw a lot of the outlines of what it takes to win in the playoffs, right? Like I think Kyle Lowry was pretty essential to slowing down Jimmy Butler. The knee injury certainly didn't help him tonight, but Lowry was awesome yet again in that defensive assignment on Butler. But then when they needed some offensive punch, when they needed to beat the zone, Buddy Hield comes in, and after what I thought was a very passive first half, he steps up. He's more aggressive. Him and Batum found that synergy. There was still side-to-side passing in the second half, but it felt more purposeful. It was not passing side to side because they had no better ideas and because they were playing slow. It was to create the open space and stretch Miami out. And so Buddy did a good job attacking the closeouts that came as well. I believe you guys brought up the Buddy Hield lob to Paul Reed, which was, I almost fell out of my chair when that one happened. That was quite a moment. So it took everybody. And if this team is going to get where everyone wants them to go, it will take those type of efforts from Buddy, from Batum, from Lowry, from Kelly Oubre, maybe even Tobias Harris. We'll see. I won't count my chickens on that one.
Don't count your chickens, huh? Yeah. But, well, man, listen, you got anything else?
I mean, it looks like Kyle's a little bit distracted right now and has other conversations to get to, so I think it'd probably let him go.
Yeah. Or real fast, did they say, I mean, we just got the report about the possible MCL and looking at the MRI and all for the Miami Heat and Jimmy Butler. Was there anything that you heard as you were walking around about him? Because he was not in the game at the end for a few minutes there.
Yeah, we did see him in the tunnel. I saw him hanging out with Kyle Lowry. Obviously, those two are close friends. That was prior to them playing together. And from what I noticed, I saw Jimmy limping a little bit. Now, you never read too much into the immediate after the game stuff because half these guys are walking a little gingerly, even the ones that are at 100%. But not looking good for him. That obviously a credit to him and his toughness. He's able to gut it out, but I'm sure they are not feeling good right now heading into what will be the final play-in game.
That's all I got. We'll see Kyle in a couple hours here.
Real fast, at the end of the game, when Tyler Hero made the three-pointer, and then they tried to inbound the basketball,
oh my God,
and Joel and Tyrese both tipped the basketball with 0.3 of the second left. Man, that's exactly how this game was playing out, where we were like, oh, shoot, what is happening here? Did you see that from your vantage point?
I did, and I know there were some words exchanged between Joel and Tyrese, and
then they hugged it out and all that stuff, yeah.
Tyrese was asked about it after the game, and he essentially said he couldn't repeat what was said. So obviously neither one of them was super happy with how that played out.
God, they start pushing each other and talking and yelling. I'm like, don't do this now. Not now. Do this in the back. And then they hugged it out, and they were all love. But, man, wow. Whew, that was rough.
We all silly like the mayor.